a biblical perspective on life, culture, and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, it's Friday, and we love to check in with Bill Muehlenberg from Culture Watch. And Bill, a lot going on in the world. Let's start with the great debate, if I can call it that, between Harris and Trump on Wednesday. What were your initial thoughts?
Look, it was much as expected, I think. ABC, their ABC is, well, kind of like our ABC, biased, left-wing, lamestream media. So we didn't expect much good to come of it. So instead of a one-on-one debate, right, Trump and Kamala, it was really Kamala, the two ABC hosts or moderators, against Trump. So again, that's so to be expected nowadays. The media is so hostile to anything remotely conservative or Christian or traditional values. So that was the first obvious thing. There was fact-checking, so-called, but of course, any fact-checking done by the moderators was done to Trump, right? Never once to Kamala. All the hard questions, if there were any, were aimed at Trump, not Kamala, right? All the challenges and critical questions, you name it, it was all against Trump, but, you know, kid gloves with Kamala. So, look, I think Trump handled himself well. He made a number of points, the main one being, are you better off now than 4 years ago? Right, as I think Ted Cruz said after the debate, about the only ones better off now in the last 4 years are the Mexican drug lords, right? You know, they're benefiting with the illegal immigrants pouring through the southern border, but most Americans know they're not doing so well. So, yeah, Kamala at the end said she might do a second debate. Well, often like in a prize fight, right? When the boxer loses, the first thing he says, I demand a rematch. So maybe she's thinking she didn't do so well as well. But, look, well, what they should do, right, to really make it fair, maybe have Fox News host another debate instead of all the typical left-wing media outlets.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to agree to that. But I read a recent report that said the number one concern for the average American is the economy, and the number two concern, believe it or not, is the abortion issue. Those are the two big topics that the average Americans who were surveyed said they're most concerned about. And so you do wonder, Bill, if these debates are even going to sway people in which way they vote. You get the feeling most people already know which way they're going to vote.
Yeah, well, that's right. They can do limited, have an impact of limited proportions. Most people, as you say, either know who they're running with or couldn't care less about either. So it's really, I suppose, the swing states. There's a good 7 or 8 of these states that can flip either way, and trying to target those people. Certainly Pennsylvania is a key one, which is why at least Donald Trump, unlike the moderators, kept bringing up the issue of things like fracking, which Kamala has always said she's fully against. Now she's pretending she's fully in favor. People in Pennsylvania certainly are keenly interested in issues like that and other ways in which energy is produced and so on. So as long as Trump keeps pushing those kind of pocketbook issues, the issues that really matter most to Americans, I think he should do well. The abortion question had been quite low on the list, but yeah, I see. Well, Kamala's tried to push it up, make it the key thing, but during the debate, she lied about that, said Trump wants a national abortion ban. Wrong, he never said that. You name it. She was telling a number of porkies, but she was able to get away with it. So, we'll see if the debate really has impacted very many voters at all.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to state too that it's been proven that 90% of the American media now leans towards the left, which is the Democrat side, which is what we call the Labor and the Green side. And so it's very difficult, as you said, to get fair and balanced news reporting in the States. Now, Fox News is probably in that 10% that aren't left-leaning. So that explains why the two moderators were very anti-Trump, like you said. They were very favorable towards Kamala. It was almost like they were trying to set Trump up the whole time. But he knew that beforehand, didn't he? And to his credit, he wasn't afraid to get into that lion's den and just have a crack.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's doing it all the time, unlike Kamala, right? She's gone, 54 days now since being made the top dog, without one press conference, right? She had one fake interview, which was, pre-scripted, questions asked advanced, taped, edited, So one lousy fake interview, no press conferences, and here a friendly ABC network supporting her. Whereas Trump, every day, more than once, he'll go to one rally after another, 2, 3 a day. He'll take questions. He'll talk with ordinary Americans. He'll field their criticisms, objections. He's used to it. He knows about talking to people, whereas Kamala has been hiding in her basement for several months now and probably will until November 5. So, yeah, it's, even that is so, telling in itself. Trump, we know his positions, right? We know exactly where he stands. Trump is proud of them. On the other hand, Kamala now is trying to run from her former stances. And as Trump said in the debate, I'm about ready to send you a MAGA hat because you're now embracing, it seems, so many of my policies. So, look, at least he can get his points across, even if the media is preventing him from really doing it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And staying in America, at about 10 p.m. on Wednesday, it was the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Bill, do you remember we were told that the world had changed forever? Do you think that statement was true back then? And how do you think the world is different today since 9/11?
Well, yes and no. I mean, on the one hand, as when any disaster happens, you think, oh, this is going to finally wake the people up. This will finally change things, right? Within probably weeks or months, Americans will right back to the same lifestyle they're always living, basically selfish, sinful lifestyles. Was there a mass turn to God? Was there mass repentance? Was there mass revival? No, people just went back to their ordinary way of life. So in that sense, yeah, well, nothing's changed, nothing altered. But in the other hand, I suppose we, for those who are more aware, know what's going on. Yeah, we learned a bit more about political Islam, about what its real aims are, about the need for a strong military. That's why, again, Trump would be helpful here, unlike Kamala and Sleepy Joe. Putin didn't invade Ukraine under Trump's watch, the conflict in Israel right now. And what happened on October 7th, that did not happen under Trump's watch. It happened under Biden and Kamala's watch. So we know it's a dangerous place indeed. Political Islam is a big part of this equation, and one fears for the world if she should get in November. So in that sense, hopefully we've learned a few things, but time will tell.
Yeah, a good answer, because certainly it's changed in the West in the sense that we're seeing terrorism a lot more in the West than we were before 9/11. It's almost become commonplace now. It's reported quite often in Europe, sometimes North America. Even here in Australia, we had the Lint Cafe massacre. So certainly it's changed from that perspective. But like you said, for the average American, life did seem to go back to normal, didn't it? Not a lot changed in the long term, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I recall once, may have shared this on this program before, I think it was with Jim Wallace. At the time, head of the ACL, there had been this big bushfire running through Canberra, right? Homes destroyed, lives lost, I think. It was like, I don't know, a few days later, I was there. Jim was driving me around in his car. So I asked him, well, did these horrible fires in Canberra, did it do anything? Did it change anybody? And, he basically laughed and said, no, same old thing, tragedy may, wake us up for 24 hours, but otherwise you go straight back to business as usual. Sadly, I think it's going to take something much more than that. If God wants to wake us up, get our attention, yes, what's it going to take? How bad do things have to get before people start saying, well, maybe my priorities haven't been very good. Maybe I better get right with God and the like. So sadly, that's often the way it is with fallen mankind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did read on your recent blog, Bill, an army of the ordinary, that you and I can make a difference. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, it actually came out of a movie some of your listeners may have seen. It came out earlier this year. In fact, I wrote an article on it. Anthony Hopkins, starring as a British industrialist who devoted his life just before the Second World War to rescuing children, mostly Jewish young children, out of Prague in Czechoslovakia. So the movie, I think, did quite well. In fact, in the cinemas, it was simply called One Life. And well, I just happened to see it was on TV again just the other day. So I got to see it a second time, right? Even though I wrote it up back in January. Being able to see it again, I could take a few more notes, at least at home, easier than in a dark cinema. So I wrote it up a second time and, just pointed out a few things. Well, early on, there was a bit of dialogue, which now I got to write. There were maybe 3 or 4 people with Nicholas Winton, the star of this action, sitting at a, I don't know, restaurant in England, talking about what can we do to save these children. And the dialogue goes something like this. One person says, ordinary people wouldn't stand for this if they knew what was actually happening. And a few others pitch in, you've got a lot of faith in ordinary people. Well, I do, because I'm an ordinary person. So am I, said another, and me. And the last line, well, there you go. That's just what we need, isn't it? An army of the ordinary, right? Just ordinary people, ordinary Joes who care and are willing to do something. And that was the whole point of his, successful businessman. But he arranged to have all these children, or as many as he could, taken out of Czechoslovakia just before the Nazis invaded, and resettled, getting foster homes and the like in England. So I think in the end, before it was too late, he got something like 669 of these children settled in the UK. So that in itself was an amazing story, but he often wondered, did I do enough? Could I have done more? And he felt bad about that. And well, as I write in my article, actually, eventually, like 50 years on, the BBC got wind of what he had done a half century prior. So they invited him on their popular TV show, put him in the front of the audience. He didn't, he wanted to go in the back, why am I up here? And the moderator talks about, wow, we've got your diary of what you did with these 600 children. And we tried to follow up on some. And sitting next to you, Winton, is one of the children you rescued, who's now, obviously an adult woman living in the UK. So he turned to her, she turned to him, the tears flowed, they hugged each other. And then very briefly, they had a follow-up program. Just a week or two later, they invited Nicholas Winton back on. She again spoke to this amazing story, and then she asked the audience this question. I wonder, are there any people here in the audience tonight who owe their lives to Nicholas Winton? And with that, right, dozens of people all over the audience who they managed to bring in stood to their feet. The moderator told Nicholas, stand and turn around, would you? So he stands up, looks, and sees all these people whose lives he, well, along with others, had saved from the Nazis. So again, more tears, more reunions, and just an amazing story. So I just make an obvious point, right? We're all ordinary people. I mean, you and I, probably, Andrew, don't think we'll be on a BBC program or a SBS program talking about our great deeds and exploits. But that's all right. We don't need worldly recognition. We simply need to hear those words one day, right? Well done, good and faithful servant. So we may, like Nicholas, feel we're not doing much. We could have done more. But if we're faithful in the little things, God recognizes that. And as I keep saying, it's probably not till we get to the next life that just as people in the audience got up and said, my life was saved because of yours. Well, how many people in heaven will come up and say, something you did or said led to my spiritual journey. I became a Christian. So in that sense, you helped to save my life as well. So, right, we just got to keep on going. You got to persevere because we just don't know how much good we might be doing in this life. But soon enough, we will find out. So keep at it.
Yeah, what a great message of faith, hope, and love there. If you're just listening for the last couple of minutes, this is Bill Muehlenberg, and you can look up all of Bill's blogs, and they're always good at billmuehlenberg.com, and Muehlenberg is spelled Muehlenberg. That's billmuehlenberg.com. Bill, I want to thank you for joining us on 2020 Today.
Always a pleasure. Many thanks.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.